Okay, so I think we'll just get going. So who's ready to present the last lecture's exercise on adventure stories? Anyone? Anyone ready for that? Anyone ready for that? Anybody? You guys there? Anyone? Not everybody needs to do it today. Whoever is ready. Okay, cool. Honey, if you want to start. Maybe after someone else. Okay. Kyra, you ready?
So I'm scared like mine's very long, so like I don't want to go first lah. Because it's like too long. You know, I don't want to like hold everybody up with it.
Okay, estimate time of presentation, 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes.
Probably more than 5 minutes.
It's a long time. That's a lot.
So you know how much I talk. Because like, I really, this was very interesting thing to look into lah. This particular exercise. So like, I don't know.
Okay, you got a lot of pictures to show.
Not so much pictures.
Okay, but you got some pictures, yeah?
Like a couple.
Okay. Okay, I have an idea. If you're worried about the length of the presentation, if it can be quite long, if it's more than 5 minutes. Okay, this is how it goes. Maybe you want to just focus on what you really think is important then.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just focus on what you really think. You don't have to explain every single thing, but I think the key things that you want to tell us about. So it's fine if you want to give a bit more explanation. It's totally fine. Yeah, I think that'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're ready, just go ahead and share screen.
Okay. So you disabled screen sharing.
Oh yeah, sorry. I mean, let me enable it all. Done.
Okay.
Hannah said it's okay. You can hold up.
We all insist.
Ayo, yola. So
Okay,
shy lah.
Okay, so the game that I decided to look at is actually like one of my current favorite games, Dangan Rumpa. I mentioned it in the previous exercise. It's a visual novel type adventure game. So to look like for my comparison, hold on, how do I close this thing? Okay, yeah. So for like my comparison to a game from the 80s, I looked at Mystery House, which is like one of the first graphic games. Okay, so just like short introduction, I won't say everything that's here. So Danganronpa was released in 2010. It's a mystery adventure / shooter game, like all in one.
Right.
And the storyline progresses by you like investigating. You look for clues, you find a murderer in each chapter. If you don't find a murderer, you're gonna get killed. And like the drive in the story is that you're a bunch of students stuck in a death game, and that you're like stuck in this school building together.
Okay.
And yeah. So so like back to the beginning, where did adventure games start? You know? So adventure games are always these type of games where you're the protagonist, the stories are interactive, you solve things, you explore things. And they started as text-based games. And the first graphics-based adventure game was Mystery House, which was released in the 80s. And this genre of games was the most popular in around the 80s after the release of Mystery House and games that followed it. But in Asia and like especially in Japan, the genre is still popular till today with visual novels like Danganronpa.
Right.
So like brief intro on Mystery House. So it was inspired by that first text game, but then the creator felt that, oh, you know, maybe if I added some images into this game, then it would make it more interesting. So you're trapped in a mansion and left to explore and meet some other people that are also trapped in that same place. And then at first, your goal is that all of you are searching for these hidden jewels in this ancient, like in this old mansion. But then you reach a point in the game where you start finding corpses of other people and you have to find a murderer before they get killed. So like, I was quite like fascinated to see that from the first of these type of games until now, there's still that same theme of like murderer and like being trapped in a place. Because like I didn't intentionally pick a game that was similar. This is just the first of the adventure games that I found.
Right.
So I also like felt that it was important to include this game, which I won't touch on as much, but this game, the Portopia Serial Murder Case, it was the first adventure game that was made in Japan, which was created because the guy who made it noticed that there were so many of these games rising in popularity in the US, but there weren't any in Japan. And this game, he like innovated the adventure genre because there wasn't one set way to complete things. You could solve the story in your own order, and like different dialogues would lead you to a different scenario, but it would all end at the same ending. So it was kind of like a pick your path, but with one ending. And again, it's a murder mystery, and you're a detective investigating the death of a bank company's president. And so looking into like the different aspects that you asked us to look at. So first of all, we have the story. So I'm not gonna, this part's pretty long, I'll just cut it down. So Danganronpa, basically, you wake up in a school building among 15 other students, no access to the outside world. Everyone lost their memories except for the fact that the other 15 students are these like ultimates. So they are known to be like the best in their niche, but you're just this regular guy, Makoto. Like, I'm just here, all these other 15 people are like super talented. And you're all targeted in this death game, and the guy holding you captive is not a man, it's this robot bear here. You know? So like, so all of you are like, how am I being stuck here by a bear? And then so alongside being forced into this death game, you're also trying to figure out like, who is the guy behind this bear? How do you get out? Because the only thing that they really know is that supposedly this bear is keeping them in to protect them from the outside world, but what's happening outside? Okay, so just to like compare the types of stories that they have in the past versus the present, as I mentioned earlier, murder mysteries are something that is still around from the beginning until now. The same types of stories are being told, but Mystery House and Portopia both had more like realistic storylines, but that were like closer to reality, you know? So like, even the characters, I looked through it. Portopia, the characters was a guy from a bank, a secretary, a police. I look at Mystery House and it's like, it was just a bunch of random people stuck together, but they were like a plumber, a mechanic, a surgeon, you know? They're just these regular, ordinary people. But in Danganronpa, they did this take where you can't relate as much to the characters because they're like, oh, I'm the ultimate detective, best detective in the world. I'm the best baseball player in the world. They're all like the best at one niche thing. And the setting itself was very strange, and like you had to take that into account when you were playing the game, because the story was that you needed to figure out where you are alongside figuring out the other mysteries, you know? Yeah. So the main like gameplay of all three games is that you are uncovering a murder mystery. That's the simulation. You're this guy like figuring out what's happening.
Uncovering, yeah.
Yeah. And with both Danganronpa and Mystery House, part of the problem is that you are locked in one building and you have to investigate the puzzle.
Another word that's similar to uncovering is unraveling.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just have like some pictures of the gameplay of like the 3 games here.
Mm.
So the first 3 pictures, this one's from the black and white one is from Mystery House.
Mm.
Top right one is from Portopia. And
That
then
one is the DOS base, the first one, right?
Yeah.
Looks very DOS base.
Yeah.
Mm.
I actually I found an online port of Mystery House and I wanted to try it out, but because of the like both the system differences and like it was just quite like hard for me to understand how to play because like it was a very buggy port of it.
Probably is an early iteration of that.
Yeah, and like because the gameplay they say is like half an hour long only, so I thought time-wise it should be fine, but then it was too buggy for me to go through.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and then Portopia, I wanted to look at it as well, but there's no English translation of the game. It's only in Japanese, so like I wouldn't have been able to know what's going on. So moving on, so basically the puzzle normally is only the investigation, but with a lot of modern games now and with Danganronpa is alongside the story and the investigation puzzles, there's also they included these like other mini games into the gameplay to like make it more interesting, and because like the game is pretty long, so if you're doing just visual novel style for like 6 hours, then like you need something in between to spice it up a bit. So they have these like puzzles where you need to fit a story together, this like weird like shooter part. How do I explain this part? So like you are still continuing with the like you have a text and you have options for what to say, but you can't, it's not just that you have to select what to say. You have to aim what you want to say at the correct text on screen and shoot the correct sentence. Because it's like you are trying to interject someone else speaking rather than having a like linear conversation.
Yeah, you're selecting a response.
Yeah. And they also like even have a like rhythm game in it, which I thought was like out of all of the things you could include in the game, suddenly you have a rhythm game there. And like it actually became like an important part of the gameplay. So yeah, I think like newer games have like more room to have more puzzles and stuff. And yeah, so next section is the suspension of disbelief.
Suspension of disbelief.
This part was like I found it quite interesting because when it comes to like disbelief and the 2 older games that I looked at, although you don't see murder every single day, you're not a detective every day. It's still something very real and happens in real life. So there's not that much shock factor in the sense that like the story is so unheard of. Except with Mystery House, you have that like, why am I stuck in this house? But besides that, it's like, oh no, people are getting killed. And it's just like a guy with an axe coming and killing people. So yeah, like I think the earlier adventure games, both these 2 and some others that I read about, they did have quite a lot more that were more realistic in their ideas. And the disbelief is more like part of the story and like what's happening. Like, like who did this? How can someone just lock us in this house? Like the disbelief is just part of the investigation, Yeah. So, but with Danganronpa on the other hand, I find that the game really plays onto the fact that a lot of the things are not easy to believe. So first of all, like, I mean, the one part they did play at that they wanted it to be relatable was that it's about a group of teenagers and they wanted the game to be aimed at teenagers as well. Because originally when they first designed the game, it was the first prototype was a very dark and very gory game with less of the like colorful puzzles and stuff. But then they looked back at it and they're like, teens might not want to play this. It might be a bit too heavy for you to play just like casually. But then they changed it up a bit and the characters are all like these bright and colorful people. And then even though they are all those like super talented people, they still had some things you could relate to in that sense where you were cared for their friends. They wanted to know what was happening to their family outside the school. They had aspirations and they had like hopes and stuff, But, and then especially since you're playing as this protagonist that is the one normal guy around all these other people, then when the player feels that, oh, I'm not as interesting as all these other people, then you kind of feel it too. Because like so for example, if you were playing the game as that as one of those ultimate people, for example, if you played as the ultimate detective and not this normal guy, then the immersion might have been a very different situation, because you had to like put yourself into this role of the best detective in the world, rather than just being this boy that's like just happens to be there.
Yeah, yeah.
But then at the same time, there was the bizarreness of the story where nothing is explained about the world, and the game does very little to explain it as well. And actually, like, there were some things that you may wonder while playing it that until the end, you don't know the answer to it. In fact, this
Yep.
game continued on as a 3-game series. And by the end of the 3 games, you still are like, wait, what the heck is happening? You know? Because it's like, why does this robot bear have so much control over these people? How am I trapped in this school? Why am I being forced to kill these other people? Is it really that easy for a kid to decide, oh, I'm going to kill this other person? And then stuff like, oh, how is one teenage girl in charge of basically the apocalypse? How did she destroy the whole world? So there's so many questions in that you may ask during the game, but they didn't try to force you to understand it. And I find that in this particular storyline, it worked, because if you were to explain it, you might just have even more questions.
Very good. Very
But
good.
because it's not explained, then you can just like sit and like, you can just sit on it and wonder and focus on all the other things in the story, because in the end they played more into the emotional factor of your attachment to the characters and all of these interesting people, rather than the fact that the world is ending.
Very good.
Yeah. So yeah, this is just a quote from the guy who wrote the game, and his aim was to shake the heart of the players by showing a devastating accident in not so devastating ways, because they didn't focus on the deaths in the game in a way that was like, oh no, these people are dead, you know, like, so after every chapter you have to find who killed who, right? And then the punishment for the murderer being discovered is they themselves get murdered by the robot bear. And he does it in like these really theatrical manners, like he would tie them to a motorbike, and then you have to watch them, like the motorbike be sped up so fast that they die from the velocity. They did things like you were strapped to a rocket, and then you were launched into space, but they made it very theatrical and just like it was child's play, like it looked like toys. I wanted to include a video, but I forgot. But yeah, so like they dealt with death in a very amusing manner. So it was very strange. At first, it's very unnerving in the first few chapters, but then by the time once you get to the end of the game, it gets to be quite entertaining instead. So it was very, I don't know, I like don't know what that says about me, because you know, like first at this, like, am I getting desensitized to this issue? Okay, so choices and the consequences in the game. So I feel like choices is like the biggest deal in this type of game, because it's like you just pick your dialogue and that's how the story continues. So Portopia was very important in this particular aspect, because it was the main game that innovated the idea of you not having to follow the whole storyline a certain way. Like you and your friend might play the same game, but just because you said yes in one situation but your friend said no, the way that the story continues could be very different until it comes back together at the end. And then this game became known as having a game without a game over, because Portopia didn't really have a way to lose, because rather than how some games are, where when you if you mess up, if you don't achieve the goal, then it's just game over, start again, like right from the beginning. This game brought on the concept that the consequence was just that you had to keep going, rather than that being the end. There wasn't an end. If you thought the wrong person was the murderer, then that's not the end of the world. The police are going to criticize you, yes, but then they just tell you, okay, reopen the case. So then that's how Portopia continued. And that's what made Portopia the defining game of visual novels as a whole. Because if you play any visual novel today, it's that same concept. The game doesn't end. You just, oh no, I messed up. And then you go back maybe like 5 steps prior to where you messed up. And I think that's part of like what makes like visual novels addictive, because you don't have that internal feeling of loss. You don't feel like, oh no, I lost the game, I don't want to continue anymore. It spurs you on to keep going. Okay, so
how do we get
take a
here?
breather for a second. So like, how did we get here?
Absolutely.
So I think part of like how the advancement of these games came about definitely is a little bit to the advancements in technology that we have now. Not by a lot, but definitely the little like additions into gameplay were helped by this. So because Mystery House was really just the text and the dialogue options. Portopia, the creator tried to make it more as interactive as he possibly could. And in his head, he had this idea of one day you could use artificial intelligence to run a game like this. Your conversations could be live and not pre-scripted. But he knew that because of the technological limitations, he couldn't do that. So what he did was just, okay, instead, since I can't do that, maybe I can just have some extra variation in the storyline. Maybe the storyline can turn out differently for different people. Because that was the most he could get. He couldn't just build a talking game AI in the 80s. But then at the same time, the format of these games have not changed much from then until now. You're still playing a game where you're reading text and picking text options to continue the story. But at the same time now, you have the space to add like hints of other genres into it, like how the puzzles that I mentioned in Danganronpa earlier, where they have like the fast timed shooting thing, they have like a rhythm game in it and all that. So, but then part of it was also that you need to stand out among other games in the genre. Because right now there's so many visual novels on the market. So what are you going to do to make yours different? So maybe that would be through adding aspects of different genres into it. Because making a game right now is not solely for creativity and expression. You also want it to be profitable. You want it to be able to be marketed to a lot of people. So if your game is just another visual novel, you might not go very far.
Okay, pause there. Do you think the effects now? How does the effects? Do you think the effects incorporated or the technology concerning the special effects or the graphics can that influence that? Can that influence the narrative?
It can definitely. I think if anything, it makes like the level of graphics we have now can definitely make a game feel more immersive, and can like the simulation is a bit more like, yeah, the simulation feels more like you can get sucked into it because you can have so much more in terms of the graphics. You can have things shown more realistically, and even if not realistically, there's just so much more that you can portray.
Very good.
Yeah. And then like, for example, when I looked at the 10 minutes that I spent trying to play Mystery House, for example, when you walked about the house, there was no simulation of you walking. It was just like every time I move up, then it would cut scene to you being up the stairs. You can't see yourself walking up the stairs.
So it's kind of like,
now,
yeah. So it kind of
games now you can have that.
Right. It describes the action, but it doesn't necessarily, you can't see yourself, right?
Yeah.
You can't see it from first person or third person.
Yeah. So that it doesn't really feel as much like you're putting yourself in there as a game now might.
Do you think
it really just felt like I'm looking at a computer?
Do you think mysteries can easily be more solvable because we got a much better point of view because we have the technology for that effects?
Yeah, I think it can, because you can, like, let's say if you're trying to retrace the steps of the killer, you can quite literally retrace the steps that you think that they took, rather than just, okay, I think they were up the stairs, but suddenly I'm upstairs.
Fascinating, isn't it? Really fascinating. Good. Carry on.
Yeah.
Any more? A lot more to go?
Not a lot more, just like a couple more points.
Okay.
So one other thing is the video game demographics might be different now compared to then, because back then it was really like computers were just an adult thing, but now games are for everyone, and you can pick who you want your audience to be. You're not really limited anymore. So like I said earlier, you can have games like this where it's for teenagers and it's about teenagers. You're not limited to telling stories to just adults. And teenagers tend to have a bit more, I don't know, their minds are not as like stuck into society's worldview yet and are more like open to bizarre fiction. So you get to go and bug the younger people with them. And besides that, Western people and Asian people might have different interests and different types of games that they like, which is why now, if you look at it, the adventure type games like this, games like Mystery House, they're not very popular in the West. But if you look in Japan, I think I read that about 70% of PC games in Japan that are sold are visual novels, because that's just what's in. So I think the guy that wrote Portopia, he really did achieve his goal of wanting to make this game popular in Asia. Like, he made it so popular in Japan that now Western game companies who want to make games like this, some of them are looking at what Japan is doing to see like what's in. In fact, you know The Last of Us?
Yeah.
It was inspired by Danganronpa partially.
I see.
So like it's kind of come full circle in a sense. So that was like very interesting to me. Also, okay, this is the last point. So the thing about the visual novel genre is at the same time, it's not a very difficult thing to write mechanics wise. If you want to stick to just the format of like dialogue choices and that's it, like even if you have a lot of complex things going on in the graphics, you still have less to think about in the gameplay than you might have with other genres. And a lot of writers, like this genre gives a lot of writers the space to play more with the creativity, and like you can tell so many different storylines because you don't have to think so much about how you're going to make this game. And in fact, like it's, now there are just simple like visual novel engines online where you can pick some pre-made avatars, you can put your story together. Like I have some friends who like to play around with that, So it's truly a genre for people who want to mess around with stories but not think too much about the gameplay. But it's like writing an interactive book basically. So I think that's a very like cool concept, It's a space truly for people who just want to tell their stories but they don't want to write a book.
So there's a distinction between interactive stories, simulations, and gameplay. You think they're three different things?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so that's it. I'm out of breath now. Thank you for listening.
Oh, great. My pleasure, man. Damn, man, this is like, you could give a game studies lecture, man, for this. You should.
But I was looking at my slides. I'm like, wow, this is as long as first class. I'm kind of scared.
Well, nice study there. Fantastic analysis you have presented. I think a lot of the things that you mentioned, you've mentioned some very, very key aspects. One important thing is suspension of disbelief. That is a very important sentence because that is the heart of what makes the genre more immersive, actually. More not just immersive, but it relatable.
Yeah.
Because I suppose a lot of individuals appear to be a lot more happier in the environment because they're able to do things they can't do in real life. But would it matter? It would not matter because in an environment like that, can you imagine if everything was too realistic in the environment? If everything was too realistic in the environment, then what's the difference between that and real life? For example, getting shot, all right? Getting shot, or being able to unravel a mystery. For example, let's say if you're walking through this house or you're exploring this town and you're asking people and you realize, right, at some point while doing that, you've been doing that for hours. In real life, if you do that for hours, you get really tired. You need to sleep. There's a lot of the realistic elements that you do in real life that sort of limits you. But in that environment, you can spend 24 hours looking for, unraveling things, searching, traveling from point to point in a huge map, open world, whatever. So that is disbelief. Right? You'll be asking, How is that even possible? That doesn't make sense. But would it matter? That's the difference. So that suspension of disbelief, that element is so important in the genre because, like you said, it's a very, very important sentence. I think it's worth studying it. And like the appearance of the bear, the most unreal aspects, some even minute details doesn't quite make sense, but it doesn't really matter. It does not need to make sense. You do not need to know the ending. You do not, you know, that's why stories end in cliffhanger. In real life, sometimes we want closure, and it's it's easier to get closure in real life compared to in a game. In a game, they just totally limit you, so you would probably say, why? I want to know the ending. But if you know the ending, what's the point of continuing with the story? So there's so many different, as you said, I think your explanations are spot on, but I think it's worth um, going into some specific areas and analyzing them more, but particularly the immersion aspects, the connection between the on the technicality side, the technology, the three-dimensional technology versus two-dimensional, because you say the text base has evolved, but some people still like the text base for various reasons. For example, some people have lower spec CPU. You're content with something more 2D. Someone with a higher spec CPU would probably be, well, I'm able to support this, so I might as well go into the environment a lot more immersively. And some people have even higher CPU settings where you can do AR and VR and mixed reality, even more immersive. So it really, there may be a connection between visual effects, the technology to create that kind of visual effects versus the two-dimensional. And that started in the 1990s. You can see the transition happening there. So good. Thank you, Kyra. That's very, very, very informative. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me ramble for like how long?
Oh, don't ever say that you're rambling on this one. You are actually, I would call it next time. You should say it this way. You should call it I would say you're presenting, basically. You're teaching, or you're explaining, or you're describing. You are. So don't say that's not ramble. Trust me, that's
Okay.
not rambling at all. Okay. Nice one. If you call that rambling, then you should ramble more. Hey, all right. Who's next? Hannah? Anyone ready? If not, we can move it to a later time. Maybe this Friday or something, or next Monday. Excuse me.
So sorry, can I present on Friday?
Yeah,
like
of
after
course.
that presentation, I just feel like I need to like make my presentation even better.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, of course, Tabitha, you too. You can do it later. No problem, Hannah. You can do it on Friday. Presenting these little exercises after lectures, post-lecture exercise. It is your own weekly. You do it in your own time thing. So it's not going to be every week, but I'll probably give you certain weeks when I present the lecture. I will give you this, but it's not going to be every week. Yeah. Today there will be one more, but this, we have to understand, these exercises are meant for you to research. It's just designed for you to do a bit more reading, unravel things for yourself, and because you guys are all interested, you're passionate students in the world of games, and not just that, in the world of new media, and something is happening. So you guys are all in a kind of a story, a narrative driven game by itself. So you need to earn your XPs by unraveling stuff. Yeah, so like Kyra just earned something today. Okay. So if you guys of course take your time to do it. You can feel free to present it on Friday or Monday if you're not ready. If you think you need to read up a little bit more, incorporate a little bit more research reference, yeah, go for it. okay? But don't take too long. Just, you don't have to present so long, okay? And don't compare yourself with another person. Present it the way you see it. Every way everyone sees it is very unique, okay? So focus on that. Choose one genre that you think it's really dear to you, and really think, or maybe you're not familiar with the genre, so you can actually choose a specific genre that you probably want to familiarize with. That's a good start. That's really, really good. Okay, so try it out. In fact, you can actually play it. In fact, the next exercise will require you to play something. Now, Hanif, you want to do anything now?
Can I present?
Yeah,
But mine is simple lah, very simple.
never mind. It's okay.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead and share screen.
Hello sir, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
So for my topic, like examining the game culture,
Mhm.
I chose the RPG game of the Divinity Original Sin 2. So like this one is for the RPG like genre evolution from the 80s to the present time. So basically like for the root game, I chose the Wizardry. So Divinity, first of all, for the Divinity Original Sin is considered as one of the most successful RPG game ever made. The rich side quests and dialogues make the gameplay memorable to players. But when we date back to the 80s, back in the 80s, Wizardry, the proving ground of the Math Overlords, is also considered as one of the most important RPG alongside Ultima. So I was wondering like what makes this Wizardry like very popular in that time. So basically like Wizardry is the first like RPG game that it introduced the elite class. Like normally the RPG game that it has like normal class only like the wizard, the knight, the thief. But wizardry it brings one step closer. It like one step up lah. So it introduced the elite class. Like from the mage, maybe you can upgrade to this priest, cleric. So it makes that wizardry very famous in the 80s. So one of the key elements to make wizardry stands out during the 80s is the uniqueness of its gameplay. It offered players the ability to customize their character in so many ways. See, like in Wizardry, you can like use it has so many ways to customize your characters, such as the races, alignments, and the classes. I mean, like the races, you can pick either like a human, normally the human, the elf, the dwarf, or the something else. But one thing very peculiar to me is the alignments. Like alignments is something like either the character can be good, bad, or neutral. Nowadays in the RPG nowadays, I never seen like this anymore. Like if you choose the character to be like good, then you cannot like group them with the bad characters. So this is the one thing that very unique about the Wizardry. So because of this, the game is highly replayable since there are many things for players to try out in every new gameplay. So it means that in every new gameplay, after you finish the game, basically the game is like a dungeon. You have to like going down this dungeon from level 1 to level 10. So it is a puzzle game. So at the end of the game, you have to fight this final boss, the Weirna. She is the wizard. So basically, like even if you have defeated her, you still can like choose another like alternative ending with another different character. Maybe a priest, a warrior, a thief, is up to you. So this kind of gameplay later has forever paved the way for future RPG games like Divinity, Dragon Age, Dark Souls, even Diablo. Even in Diablo, as we can see, like it has like so many like super class, like the Demon Slayer, the Monk, the Mage, and then the Necromancer, the Witch Doctor. So that's why like Wizardry is very important. The significance of wizardry in the world of RPG.
Hmm.
So this is the screenshot of wizardry. Like this one is the home page. As we can see here, the wizardry for the character with classes. Like when you play the wizardry, it is a turn based. So you have your squad. Maybe like 6 people here. It shows like 6 people. This one the class, and then this one is the maybe the this one is a mage, thief, priest, and then this one is a fighter. So that is what makes this wizardry like very popular that time. So moving on to the previous present time. So what makes this Divinity Original Sin like very popular? Even on IGN, they rate it 10 out of 10. So when I do some research, like player can create their own characters with 5 different races, and each of them has their own speciality.
The Original Sin 2 is 10 out of 10, is it? Is it referring to the second one or the first one?
The second one.
Second one, yeah.
So like when we look back, when you compare these two, right, the Wizardry and the Divinity Original Sin, the similarity, I mean the richness of the gameplay. Example, like the 5 races is the human, the lizard, the elf, the dwarf, and the undead. Example for the elf, like if you choose the elf, you can trace back a person's memory by eating their flesh, while the undead can be healed by a poison. So like a normal person, you have to use this regenerate like spell to heal that person, but not for the undead. It's like vice versa. Poison heal the undead, while the regenerative spells will hurt them. After like selecting a race, this one also like very important. Like the players can select up to, imagine like 14 classes. I never played any RPG game that offers you like 14 classes. Like wizard, knight, shadow blade, all these like elementalists, the metamorphosis, I don't know. So what makes Divinity like to be one of the best RPG is the vibrance of the gameplay and world. To be honest, like I played this game but only like halfway. The sense of adventure and open world with your friends combined with the beautiful rich dialogues make this game piece together. Play can talk with any living things. Like if you like level up, right, you have this free point to upgrade your skill.
Right.
So one of the skill you can upgrade is to being able to talk with animals. So
right.
yeah.
That is for only specific character class, right?
No, all character can.
But they can also acquire the skill.
Yeah, you can like upgrade the skill. But then what makes it interesting, like those who upgrade the skill, they will unlock this like special quests. Like some of the animals, like the dog, if I remember, like he is losing his wife, so you have to help this dog. So imagine like only people who upgrade this skill can do that kind of mission. So that's why it's something to do with the choices and consequences. Not only that, the rich side quests also make the journey towards the primary quest to be even memorable and interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed about like excellent RPG games like The Witcher 3, even The Witcher 3. Like in order for you to go to the primary quest, right? I mean, like in the road of doing the primary quest, yeah, there are so many like side quests you can do. And these side quests later can shape the overall story of the game. So either the game can have like the happy ending or even the sad ending for you. So it depends.
What if you don't do the side quest?
So if you don't do the side quest later, like you will lose, like you don't unlock this special like armory, weapon, something the side quests give like that.
Usually side quests don't really influence the game outcome, does it? It does.
Some does lah. Because I remember this Dragon Age Origins. Like you can start as a mage, right? But there is this one like dialogues with the demon. If you like accept the demon offer, then you can upgrade your class to this blood mage. So blood mage, basically they use this blood to heal themselves.
I didn't play as mage in Origins. That's a difference.
For Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah, I played as the knight. What's that name?
Inquisition?
Yeah, no, not Inquisition. The first one. I didn't play Inquisition.
Oh.
I see. Okay. Okay.
It's quite interesting, right?
Yeah.
So as we can see here, you can see the dialogue, right? The dialogue, see, like if you have like enough intelligence for the character, then you will unlock a certain like dialogues, and these dialogues will give you advantage, either like going out for something like um, unlocking a mission, if I'm not mistaken. So the constitution also like your constitution, and then the strength. It's like every character has their own like which one is the major. I mean the major skill. Like the mage is the intelligence, the warrior is the strength. So each of them they have like specific specialty for them to do in the mission.
Mm.
So in some part of the game also player will be required to make sound judgment on several choices since they will recall throughout the game. They also puzzle inside this game like I don't remember what's the puzzles. Puzzle something like a labyrinth. So it's something to do like the Path of Exile. If you ever play Path of Exile, that if you want to ascend to these higher classes, right? Like in Path of Exile, if you in the beginning you play as a like mage or a warrior, but then as a mage you can go to this Lord Labyrinth, something like a maze. So once you go into this maze, if you like successfully finish the maze, you can ascend the classes to like necromancer, elementalist, something like that. Same goes to the Divinity Original Sin. It also used that kind of concept to make like the classes even more interesting. So yeah, this is the screenshot of the gameplay. As we can see, it is a turn-based. So like each of the character, it has their own like strategic place. You can place your character strategically either on the high ground. As we can see, if you place your character on the high ground, you will get like 35% more damage. So this is what I'm talking about, the character creation. As you can see, like this lizard, it has a specific talents like the sophisticated and spell song. Even for the character creation, like you can see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 steps. It means you can customize your character that deeply and microly. So this is my final thoughts for the Divinity. Like the rich side quests with witty dialogues, interesting storylines, treasured relationship, memorable characters, and complex gameplay are very important elements to make like what RPG genre is. Like it really gives the player a real experience of role playing. It feels like you really live inside the gaming world. Just like what you said, Dr. Charles, that when you play a very good game, you really feel like you're inside the game, right?
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
what the
Okay.
Divinity Original Sins really like. It delivers that kind of sense. All these like rich side quests, the witty dialogues. When we combine all of them, yeah, it really like it feels like you really live inside the world. So yeah, great RPG games are like reading a good novel. Your body is there, but your mind is currently living on this fantasy and magical realm that feels so surreal. To me, like I was also wondering why IGN give this game like 10 out of 10. So one day I decided to play it, then I see why it is like they give that kind of score.
Gosh.
So that is the influence of mages wizardry. Back in the 80s, like the wizardry you can play like with characters, upgradable characters, the special allied class. So this is the influence of wizardry towards the future RPG games.
Fantastic, isn't it? Thank you so much for that. That's a really good presentation as well, and very focused on role-playing games and the narrative within the role-playing games. It's interesting that you mentioned about side quests and the main quest. And very often we all have a lot of we have a lot of questions concerning side quests. Like, can side quests actually contribute to the main quest, or what happens when you do side quests, and the question of what for. And also the other one that you mentioned earlier on is the alignment element, and you notice and you said that you don't see those alignments very often. And the thing about this alignment thing is, now what I notice is yeah, you're right. One thing, there was a time where you align with either you become a more of a person paragon, or you become someone that's opposite. There's another word for it. So you become a person who is very much onto the good light side, or you become someone towards the darker side.
Yeah.
And it's,
Side.
I'm not sure. I've not read any paper yet. I don't know whether there's any studies on this or publication on this in terms of how many a study of how many people, or social study on how many people who have played a specific game like that have chosen, or um, what kind of demographics are we looking at, the difference between which group of people, what type of group of people who choose a lot more to the paragons, to the light side, or which group of people actually choose, and what a detailed study on their backgrounds. So for example, if you do a specific survey, like you play a specific RPG, and you notice that if you keep choosing the light side, perhaps the outcome is slightly different. Your pathway is slightly different, and
Yeah.
the gameplay system has been designed specifically for different paths. That's probably why you have character classes, because once you have a specific character, and these character classes are aligned to several paths, but yet they still want you to be able to make specific choices, whether it's going to be light side or dark side, or what if you don't choose anything, then the computer will probably, or the program will probably choose it for you, things like that. So I don't, so there was a time it was pretty straightforward, but now I think it's pretty much gray, right? Very gray area.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Inside the dialogue, you can choose either to like forgive this person or kill this person. So yeah.
Now those days was either forgive or kill, but now what do we do? Do we either delay the thing, or you kill, or was there any RPG that never really gives you, I mean, gives you a choice to
I
choose
remember this
neither?
game, like the Dante Inferno. You can
Dante's,
forgive the person or like banish them to hell. The Dante's Inferno.
yeah, Dante's Inferno, yes. I didn't play it.
Oh, that game also something like that.
I
Like
see.
going through this hell to like fight Lucifer, and on its way, like you can either forgive the sinner or you can banish them. So it will influence the game. So basically, if you forgive a sinner, right, you will get
Mm.
this white orb, like good orb. But when you like kill them or banish them, you will get like something like strength. So it is
So,
between.
yeah. Sorry, you were saying? Continue.
Sorry, so it's something like a option, like something like leadership, right? You
Yeah.
can lead with compassion or lead with fear, something like that. The concept.
So it makes, yeah. But the thing is, making those choices maybe may not be the only thing that you're looking at. You got to see what's influencing the choices. I mean, the people who are playing it, whether the choices have just two choices or three choices or four choices.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see how and why we choose it. I mean, chances are you might think, like in GTA, for example, look, I don't run over people in real life. I think it's wrong. I follow the law. I don't break the
GTA
law.
can run over people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Bomb.
I don't run the traffic light. Nothing. I follow everything by the book. I mean, accordingly, there's regulations there. Otherwise, you get caught by the cops, or
Yeah.
the camera take picture of your car and you'll get
Yeah.
fined and stuff. So, but in that world, it's a duplicate of the real world, basically.
But then you are free to express, to
I
try.
don't know whether it's expressed, but why is it okay for me to run over people? And it seemed like fun.
Yeah. like we have like two different personalities, right? When you play game, you're someone else.
Yeah.
And then
So I don't know, man. In the RPG, somehow I dare make those. I mean, I didn't break the law in real life, but the people who always get in trouble in real life, what do they do then? Do they
Yeah.
choose the right side? Maybe they're not used to making the right choices, or maybe in that world they get to do something right,
Yeah.
So it'd be quite interesting to study. I know. So Yeah, nice presentation, Hanif. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay,
Sir,
guys. Yeah, hello.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, the wizardry world.
Yes.
I mean, the Harry Potter. They're also releasing a new game, the Hogwarts Legacy, and then you can choose to be like good, or you want. I mean, like, you
Ah.
want to follow like
Oh,
Dumbledore, or you want to follow
yeah.
this Voldemort.
Yeah. Correct. Um, you can be like House Slytherin, or you can be House Gryffindor.
No, I mean, this one is a new game,
Oh, it's a new game,
Hogwarts Legacy RPG. It's,
RPG.
it will be released maybe on the PS4, PS5, something like that.
Yeah. So you can choose to be houses, part of the houses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a different thing, or that it really depends on the world, the game world itself. Like and honestly, all these have its roots back to Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah, Lord of the Ring.
Yeah, all roots back to him because he is one of the first. He's the pioneer of creating a totally multi-dimensional, a three-dimensional world.
Wow.
And the depth of that world is so big, so deep, that there's so much philosophy in it. There's so much, even languages are created, even a lot of things are there. It's so in depth. There are each characters matter in that world. It's almost like you have different
Even the Hobbit, right?
what? Even what?
Even Hobbit.
Ah,
I
yeah,
mean
the
the Hobbit.
Hobbit. Yeah, the dwarves. They
Yeah.
are a race of
Elf.
people. Elves are a race of people. Hobbits. You have humans, and then you have every single thing. Even dragons are equally as important. Every single being, there are races of part of the world, but except for orcs. Orcs are not naturally created by anything. They are created artificially. So that why? Because these are all but they were orcs, that is original orc, but these orcs were actually now artificially like sort of like convert. They're like disease, or they've been cursed. They used to be elves, and then somehow I don't really know the history, but if the Silmarillion, that book which is so difficult to read, I have not read it, has the whole history of Middle Earth and even beyond, during creation period as well, where you can understand where this guy came from, Sauron came from,
Yeah.
the order of the wizards, and all these things, the
The
origins.
Witch King.
Yeah, and the origins of everything. So yeah, it has very deep roots. So to such a three-dimensional world started from since Tolkien's time. And he belonged to a group of writers. I can't remember what they're called, but one of them was C.S. Lewis, and they're like a club. So C.S. Lewis started to create his own world as well, the world called Narnia. He
Oh.
created a world called Middle Earth, and wow,
And then it
amazing.
was like games, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it influences games because they, I mean, it's because games are like art movements. The kind of games, they resemble things that happen in the world of art, because whenever art comes out, something has happened in real life. There has been some major human development, like a shift between like the Industrial Revolution, the Great Depression, kind of like you see the same time where comic books come out, the birth of science fiction. I mean, like for example, Star Trek was written in the 60s. The show came out in the late 60s. And what period was that time? The period of the Vietnam War, the period of the hippie movement, Age of Aquarius, Beatles, rock and roll. And there were a lot of unrest in this world, concerning wars. It wasn't even World War III, but there were threats of World War III, the arms race, the space race. Finally came out Star Trek, and Star Trek created Gene Roddenberry created a utopia where everyone looked to the stars and forgot to the differences. and they lived in a peaceful era where they started exploring galaxies instead together, and they have a starship consisting of people who represent the different colors and different ethnic groups in this world. So similarly, games, that time we didn't have the technology, but right now I think games are using this opportunity now to try to get people to see alternatively what can be, not just what is, you know. And you're probably going to see more of that, and the stronger the representation, you know, stronger the semiotics, then people will probably learn something. So that's the educational element. What does it communicate to us? So yeah, I think there's so much to think about. Honestly, we can go on and on about it, but we're gonna do that too much. Not gonna do that too much. So I was supposed to give a short lecture on. Basically, you guys gave the lecture already because you won't believe it. Today we were supposed to do that. So I'm just going to give you a gist of it. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. Hang on a second. So here goes. So this is, we were talking about, basically everything that you were talking about is pretty much this. And we were looking at the three-dimensionality. So the three-dimensionality in games, but how it started from the early 1990s. And so ironic, you guys actually it's very good to see how you guys reconnected to some of the origins as well. So so things like games like Civilization, or Wolfenstein 3D, Doom 3D, and things like that. All these are the very beginning of the interdimensionality, three-dimensionality of games. Why? Because of technology. But they were also critiques. So you got to take note of specific critiques. For example, I mean, critiques started as well. I think became even more, I would say, more critical from the 1990s onwards, because people are starting to associate sociological issues to what's happening in games. Because, like I said, games have representations. So Sid Meier, when he created Civilization, people are starting to ask, look, this is a simulation of a Western civilization, or are you respecting Eastern civilization? Ta-da! DLCs, the answer. So DLCs, you got Indonesia. I never saw a Malaysia DLC yet, but you got Indonesian DLC for Civilization 6. You got all the different country DLCs. So it gave the more give more representations to all people groups in this world. You got African, you got India, you got all the major powers, major continents. You know, I think more is coming. So that's probably what makes Civilization interesting now as compared to critiques and feedback is very important. And during the 1990s, the age where technology is taking leaps forward, you know, the more technology get us to see things in an environment, the more possibilities of critiques. But don't shy away from criticism, okay? But sometimes because whatever you're doing, right, people need to play it, whatever you're designing. Now, one most popular games during the 1990s is like Wolfenstein 3D or Doom. So I remember playing Wolfenstein 3D. It's like, if you go to this, I'll put this PowerPoint shot. I'll put this PowerPoint, or I can just, let me just, maybe I can just put this link in the chat. Okay, I'm just going to put this, I'll put this link in the chat. So if you guys want to try out some really old games, then you can go to this website. Then you can just give it a shot. So Doom was one of those early 3D games, and you notice that it has a storyline, because you have a person, it's pretty straightforward, labs on Mars and demonic things, experiment gone wrong, and you go in there, you're the one-man hero. Same thing with Wolfenstein 3D, where you kill Nazis, but eventually the narrative becomes even more complex. But 1990s saw the advent of tying up narrative elements to technology. So like you say, from text, evolving from text-based RPG to technology. So this is kind of like a role-playing game too, but more of a first person and incorporation of violence, into the gameplay. So the aesthetics plays a very important role. Somehow, at some point later on, as RPGs evolve or adventure games evolve, they needed not just the aesthetics or the three-dimensional graphics, but music too. But it also inspires a lot of things. It inspires cinema. Yeah, it inspires a lot more storytelling. It really blew the mind of filmmakers, being able to immerse themselves in a three-dimensional environment. So they try to extract that experience, bring it to the cinema, and give it a more immersive story. Cinema is more like storytelling, but you become very much part of it. So there are a lot of references. Sometimes these games are also references from stories, and stories, from popular filmmakers as well. So everything counts here. If you notice, the level design, game maps, and very often sometimes board games very much inspired from some of these, especially when board games made after a specific digital game or movie or something could be inspired from maps, game maps, or level designs. So point of view immersion also became from the 1990s become very crucial, right? So, and how the interface, the user interface, how they connect to the user, all these are very much onto the design, the UX and UI design, right? Yeah. So that's a different thing. That's very technical. Chances are next semester, you guys are going to be focusing more on the technical aspects. So there's also sensory immersion. So like I said, sound, vision, imagination, right? Different components, and different components contribute to experiences. Now, the experiential element is what we just talked about, what you guys talked about in your game presentation, Kyra and Hanif. You talked a lot about that, and it'd be good to actually do some reading. I highly recommend I highly recommend reading the publication. I've already put that inside the notes folder. It's already in the notes folder in Times. It's actually hang on. I'll show you that one. But actually, what it talks about a gameplay experience model. Yeah. So what is the gameplay experience model? So it'd be interesting for you to make your own gameplay experience model. How does it do it? How does it go? So the journal is not that complicated to read, but there will be some new words in there. Pick it up and read it. I strongly suggest you read the journal, underline some key terminologies. And it's so essential to game studies to understand how do you create a framework like this on gameplay experience. Because understanding what connects, understanding where the meaning is positioned, the positioning of different elements in the game and how it ties in into the narrative. So what happens here, like you notice in this framework, you notice there are specific diagrams and arrows. You have the game structure, which becomes the top of the pyramid here, which is most important. You got the interface aspects and the audio visuality aspect that supports this. And then it goes, it sort of like connects to immersion, sensory immersion, challenge, imagination, imaginative immersion. Imaginative immersion contains things like suspension of disbelief. You know, challenge-based immersion is like levels, boss fights, or whichever. Sensory immersion is like music, ambience, environment. So these three, you notice they are strongly, they kind of like have a relationship, right? So then how does this affect the player? What happens with the player here? You know, so here there's motivation, meaning. Player wants to know, like you all said, player wants to figure things out, but sometimes not all the time. So you got meaning, motivation, you're interested, stimulation, okay, and then you got motorics, like action. What kind of action does a player do? What things do they do? And here cognition, what do they think? Here emotion, what do they feel? Right? So this is interesting. So Laura Ermi and Franz Mayra have actually published a paper on this one. So I've already put that paper in the notes section. Okay. And then there are influences too. There are a lot of influences to machinima, recording speedruns. Now, this is the part where you think about turn-based and real-time. What is turn-based? What is real-time? Would real-time experience be more exciting than turn-based? We did talk about this very briefly. So it'd be very interesting to study shooters too. I know some of you are very story and narrative players and things like that, but there's a reason why shooters are there actually. And I'm very curious. What are shooters doing? Why do we want to shoot? And what's going on? Why is Call of Duty so fast paced? But then you won't want to play it again. I play Call of Duty game, for example, like one run, because it's a short game, you know, but intensity is crazy. All right. So there's no time for a break. Sometimes you can't take a break too long because the environments are destructive. So, you know, so speed runs, you know, and things like that. So speed run style game events gave birth to machinima, or we call it machinima. Machinima, movies creating game engines, movies that inspire game engines or uses game engines. So these are all influences really. Some movies they did really use digital game engines, but I suggest you watch this one. It's called Hardcore Henry. It's not on Netflix yet. I don't know where it's on, but I saw this trailer on YouTube, and if you can find this movie, watch it. The entire movie is a first-person shooter. The entire movie. Okay, so there's the link to the trailer here. All right, I'll put the link shortly. And then there's also the history of battle royale. You know, this time, okay, that one, the movie got inspired from first-person games. This one, games inspired from movies. So battle royale actually started from this movie released in the year 2000, I think, and Japanese school kids. Remember that there's one story you mentioned, Kyra, I think, about 15 school kids stuck in one place and whatever. So here in this case, all these school kids, they were all juveniles and they were not good kids, and they were all brought to this island and they have to kill each other to survive. Best person best girl, best man standing wins. So that gave birth to ta-da! Inspired from Battle Royale. And Battle Royale, I think there were two movies. One original, the original was a hit. It really blew everybody's mind. The second one was a sequel, not that interesting, but it's okay. Okay, same effect. So you got the most popular Battle Royale games ever made, right? And yeah, then after that, you talk about mods and so on and so forth. But there are critiques. So none of these come without critiques. What did people actually say about Divinity 2? Were there any strong criticism? So never forget about completing the interdimensional understanding of games always include the dark side. So you must always include what are the things people didn't like about it. You know, what people said about it in terms of a critique, not so much of what they didn't like about it, but maybe does it have a controversial social commentary to it? Do they have you know, yeah, did they have bad representations? Or would they say, oh, these are racist things in there? You know, it's only portraying white people. I don't see any colored people, you know, this sort of thing. So what did the critics say about it? So things like that. So there can be many areas, you know, could be philosophical, could be, you know. So anyway, so this obviously has had a lot of critiques as well, although it was popular. But the Grand Theft Auto 5 had a lot exploited the sexuality, still exploited women in there. No difference. And and there's not all genders were represented as well. There were a number of things that the game can, or the environment here, or the game developers could have included. But you probably would expect that in GTA 6. I don't know, but there could be. But here you're talking about, you know, the rough side of life, really. So then, yeah. So if you want to take a snapshot of this first before I post this in Times, you could. This is the thing that you can do in time. You don't need to present this next week, or you can be anytime whenever you're ready. All right. So this pretty much covers a lot of things. So number one, benefits and disadvantage of three-dimensional. Like you talk about the two-dimensional, the three-dimensional, but find a game that has appeared in both two-dimensional and three-dimensional versions. Compare and give grounds for whether three-dimensional is beneficial or not in games. Now, I think, Kyra, you've pretty much done that. So you can focus on maybe real-time and turn-based. But if you still want to look at the benefits and disadvantages of that, so you can still do it, but maybe focus on one particular game. Then also, so real-time and turn-based, on the other hand, pick a game with either real-time or turn-based action. Describe its core game mechanics and explain how the player experiences them temporarily during play. Okay, explain the game core mechanic, like you saw that framework. What's happening? I mean, what's happening in that game? Or when you just play the game. For example, when I played Call of Duty, now Call of Duty, before I say what it's known for in terms of game mechanics, I was playing it, it is no different from any other shooting games, the first-person shooting games. I was just happy shooting and trying to kill the enemy. But with this case, the enemy is smarter. They know how to hide behind cover. And the cover is destructible. That means I shoot and then I hide behind a wall. I hide behind a wall. And then when I come out, they keep shooting and I might get poop. I get shot, but I'm still alive. Suspension of disbelief, right? I'm still alive. And then, but somehow my cover, I cannot hide there for too long. My cover keeps breaking. They keep shooting it. It keeps breaking. So there you go, cover mechanics. So one of the things that set apart a particular game from the others is one aspect of mechanism, one unique as element there that sets the game apart. Something that, you know, so that's the core game mechanics. What do you think that is? Like if it's investigation, the core game mechanics of an investigation with full three-dimensional special effects, for example, is being able to identify details, being able to zoom in really close. That sets that apart from the usual detective games. That you can't do that in a two-dimensional. But with this one, you just click to use magnifier, zoom in 8 times. Oh, but you can't zoom in 16 times, because to zoom in 16 times, you need to first do a side quest to earn the skill or to upgrade the magnifier. Instead of magnifier, another equipment. Kind of like Batman, right? Like the Batman Arkham Knight or the Arkham Asylum game, they're still amazing games, but Batman doesn't have all the equipment to be able to track or to play detective, to be able to see the details on the ground or whatever. You can't unless you complete a specific training or you complete a specific side quest, which able to earn the points to buy that equipment or to unlock the equipment. So the unlocking part and things like that. So how does that work? So explain core game mechanics, which is unique to the game, you know, and how the player experience them temporarily during play. So what happens during play? Okay, so which means you might want to talk about your play experience. And then thirdly, concept design for a real-time board game. 2 semesters ago, we talked about how do you convert a battle royale into a board game? Big question mark, because battle royale is all real time. So questions like that. So there's something for you. It's not something you have to do for your board game. This is just a study, but who knows? Okay, maybe I don't know whether you want to have a mod for your board game, so introduce an aspect that, oh, maybe my board game can be played in both real time and turn based. So, but I think the drawing game reminds me of more of a real time thing. So anyway, yeah, I think that wraps up our session today. You guys have any questions to ask? Wake up, everyone. Wake up, wake up. You're all sleeping really?
Not sleeping, so thinking.
Okay. Yeah, I just could put this trailer for this YouTube link. Okay, so hey Tabitha, you okay? Phoebe, I never heard, didn't hear from you. You okay? Phoebe, you there?
Yeah,
Are you all right?
yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, cool. You have any questions, Phoebe?
No.
Right. Did you understand everything? Was that too much for you to take in, or?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Hey, Jessica, I know she's probably watching the stream. Tabitha? She watching the stream?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Lovely. So I think that's it. So let's take the Kayam's attendance. Sharing screen now. Okay, here goes. Let's just take 3 minutes. Okay, hopefully Jessica can get this code. All right. Last call for questions, discussion, anything you want to ask me before we end our session? All the previous lectures are already in Times. Just renaming the files. Okay, lovely. Everybody's in now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, great. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, any last call for questions, anything? So this Friday, what are we going to do? What am I expecting this Friday? Can anyone tell me? 2 groups here, 2 representation or 2 groups.
Tabletop like update.
Okay, do you want to use the app on Friday?
I think it depends.
Depends, yeah. Okay.
I think the prototype, right? You said.
Sorry?
The prototype. Is it the prototype?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna play the prototype. Do you think we'll be able to play it?
Yeah, we should be able to.
Okay, great.
One of them.
So do you think you can give it a try to import an early version, probably your very first iteration of it, a rough version into okay, tabletop. So keep me updated on that.
All right.
So that I would be able to use the app to do it. Now, for the other group, Jessica, Tabitha, Phoebe, for you guys, now I know doing it live using the app may be a bit difficult. Now I'm going to give you this option. You could do it within your network over there. Okay, so if you use your tabletop among the 3 of us or the 3 of you and demonstrate your prototype there, if you can this Friday, then you can do it. I mean, you can record that session on your own and then upload it and send and inform me either in the group, or post that video in the group saying this is your version of it. Then I can give you feedback. So which means that you don't have to play that live on Friday. So which means you don't have to be part of the session this Friday. So you don't have to come online at all, but I will post the attendance code for you guys. Okay. Or I won't take attendance at all. But the problem, if I don't take attendance at all, it would means even Etty and Rido would be present, because by default everyone is present. So chances are I will send you the code via Messenger. Okay. Now, but just make sure you stand by and check Facebook Messenger between 2 to 4 p.m. Okay, on Friday. Okay. Thank you, Tabitha. I was hoping that I make sense on this. So I hope you guys are clear. Yeah, Phoebe, can you respond? Okay. Jessica, if she responds, then to you, Tabitha, I'm fine with that. So because I do appreciate that, I do understand your situation. So make it pre-recorded version, so I can give you the feedback. So we can work that way for your group, because I understand the connections are not very good from here to your side. But try to work something out between the 3 of you, and even for the presentation of the exercises or anything like that, you can make it pre-recorded. Okay, no issues. Whatever that you guys want to present to me, make it pre-recorded so I can give you feedback. And I assure you, I'll give you a quick feedback so that you can work better. So you guys okay with that? So I'll give you that flexibility. So you don't have, so if for example, Kyra and Hanif and Hannah, you guys are going to be using Tabletop Sim this Friday. So I'm going to be focused on Tabletop Sim this Friday, but Phoebe, Tabitha, and Jessica, you guys don't have to be online on Friday. Okay, that means you don't have to attend class, but pre-record your session. Take that time to pre-record your session, but keep checking your Facebook Messenger. So add me on Facebook so I can messenger you. Okay, add me on Facebook and say hi on Facebook Messenger so that I could send you the code, the attendance code there. So I hope this arrangement is fine with you. But if you have a better arrangement, a better idea, please let me know. Okay, because I don't want anyone to come back to me later on and say, Mr. Charles didn't tell us this and whatever. All right. Okay, yeah, please discuss about it. All right. And let me know what your thoughts are. I'm just saying all this because for your benefit, because we understand. I if I put myself in your shoes, it can be very frustrating, especially to join a live sessions at the same time when connections are off and on for certain places. So it's pretty much okay. I understand, but pre-record it. So there's a way around it. So another way of pre-recording it yourself, put it on YouTube and post the link in the ePortfolio or send me the link via Messenger or whichever. Okay. So YouTube will be probably a best alternative for that. Yeah. And the same thing with Kyra, Hanif, and Hannah, you guys, I will record that session and I'll also post it to group so you guys can also see what that group is doing and things like that. Yeah. So I think that's it. So next week, Monday is face-to-face. We're back to face-to-face Monday session. So I'll meet up with those who are face-to-face, Kyra, Hannah, Hanif, and Eti, if he wants to be even interested. Then for the rest of you online, okay, at the same time. So I will see you again for Phoebe, Tabitha, and Jessica. I may not see you live on Friday, but I expect a pre-recording version, but you let me know, okay? Otherwise, I'll see you on Monday. All right. So I think, is there anything else, anything you want to ask me on that note? Okay. Thanks for responding, girls.
So, but then if this Friday is just on tabletop, then what about everybody that didn't present today? Could that push to next week?
They can push to next week. Because
so then the following exercise will also push following it lah.
Yeah. Can push following week. Anytime is only when you're ready. Okay. Only when you're ready. Like I said, the exercises can be pre-recorded. So you can pre-record the presentation and send it over. So it does not have to be live per se, especially when your connection is very tricky.
All right.
Yeah. So for the benefit of those in Jakarta, in Indonesia at the moment. So if you find the connection is challenging, pre-record it and upload it on YouTube. So I will give quick feedback. And actually, you can do things on your own, pre-record a lot of things, right? Also your game reviews and all that. So you can do two at one time. So don't think that the game reviews you do weekly basis is separate, because your exercises includes game reviews. Think about it. Yeah, it does. If you understand your task very carefully, yeah. So everybody should be able to see that. All right. I think if everyone is clear, then we can end our session now. Last call for questions. You can type your questions. Phoebe, Tabitha, Jessica, all good? Just have to give me a thumbs up. Okay. Hannah, Kyra, Hanif.
I forgot how to do the thumbs up.
well, good thing we have the reaction button here. Okay, thumbs up from me. And thank you all for joining this session. And until we meet again, game on. All right? Game on. Take care. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
You're-
you, sir.
You're welcome. Bye.